Hey, what's up? This is Joe. I'm back in my old stomping grounds of Southwest Virginia, where I'm from, basically. So I wanted to make this video to share with you the ride that I took through the eastern Sierra Madres to a little town in Nuevo León called Linares. So please excuse my voice in this video. I'm still getting over a sinus infection I've had for the past few days. So I definitely managed to sound pretty congested when I was recording the audio to this. The ride up there was pretty gnarly, a lot of curvy mountain roads. There were like bowling ball sized rocks falling from the cliffs onto the roadway. So it was pretty sketchy, but the town of Linares itself is one of about 50 towns that are on a list that the Mexican government has deemed possessing some kind of a historic or cultural significance. And so these towns are known as the Pueblos Mágicos, or magical towns of Mexico. Although it was still a good 150 miles away from the US border, it could have been any small town in the United States. So I stayed there for a few days and got some work done on the computer and sort of soaked up the last bit of Mexico before returning home. So with that being said, if you enjoy this video, please hit like and subscribe. And as always, I've included an optional donate link in the drop box if you'd like to contribute to this project. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the road. Last time I left you, I was huddled inside a hotel in Nuevo León while one of the craziest hailstorms in memory was battering the high desert outside. At around 8 a.m. the next morning, the temperature was a balmy 85 degrees, and there was no sign of the chaos from the previous evening. I mounted my trusty steed and prepared to cross the Sierra Madres. This time I'd be taking a route new to me, right to the town of Linares, a pueblo mágico in the state of Nuevo León. Oh, this has ended up being a pretty cool road. This is on the way to a town called Linares. It's obviously high desert. This is the eastern Sierra Madres, a road that I've not taken yet. My bike had been running rough ever since I got to Mexico, in spite of replacing the fuel filter. What I suspected to be an ungodly amount of rust in the gas tank would have to wait until I got home to be fully addressed. Until then, I was just going to have to keep my fingers crossed and hope that I made it. I'll mention that these kind of roads freak me out a bit due to the lack of maintenance, but if you saw my Sonora video, you'll see that this one is extremely nice by contrast. Nevertheless, as I was approaching a left-hand curve going around a mountain, I watched in horror as a bowling ball-sized boulder fell from a cliff and rolled across the road not more than a couple car lengths in front of me. Once the landscape began changing from rocky, barren mountains to green deciduous, I knew I was leaving the Sierra Madres and approaching the magical town of Linares. Although I was still a good 150 miles away from the border, I was surprised at how similar this place was to many small towns in the U.S. This could be any small town in the United States. I mean, it is, the traffic's light, people are driving polite, kind of a cool looking church, but it looks just like something out of the United States. This thing's been made to keep ticking. Like the custom flame grips on there. In town, I found this room in a sort of a boarding house. Executive suite, they told me. Real luxury and about half the cost of the cheapest room you could find stateside. It was here I intended to stay for a few days while I worked on the computer and soaked up the last bit of Mexico.
mujer que yo inventé.
La mujer que yo inventé. Déjame, a ver, súbele al teléfono.
Provecho. Oiga, ¿tendrá desayunos?
Sí, acá. Almuerzo.
Quisiera un plato de huevos con chorizo.
Chorizo no hay ahorita.
Ok. ¿De casualidad tiene machaca?
Machacado.
Machacado. ¿Es lo mismo?
Sí, es igual.
¿Es igual?
Machacado a la mexicana, este es la mexicana. Tomate,
okay.
Cebolla y chile.
Ajá.
Y este es el normal.
Estilo mexicana. Está
Ok,
bien. Ajá.
ya está.
¿Me puede traer una taza de café, por favor?
¿Cómo no?
Gracias. In Mexico, and for that matter, a lot of other places in Latin America, if you order a coffee, you'll be brought a piping hot mug of water, sugar, Nescafe, and milk. There are a couple of different ways to attack a plate in Mexico. I prefer the traditional way of ripping off a piece of hot tortilla and using it as a delivery vehicle for a bite-sized hunk of deliciousness. I used to laugh when I'd see a gringo come down and start constructing a taco out of whatever was on the plate, until I began to notice a decent number of Mexicans doing the exact same thing. I guess it's just more fun to make tacos. One last thing I needed to take with me was an anti-parasitic tablet. This is good practice when spending an extended amount of time down here, and suggested once every 6 months to a year, just in case you picked up anything from eating the food.
Oiga, ¿tendrá Loxel?
Sí.
Nada más que una pastilla.
Eso es una sola pastilla.
Ok, ¿cuánto sería?
Eso le checo. Me sale 69 pesos.
Ok, claro.
¿Solo una?
Sí.
Mire, con este ticket le cobro a mi compañera.
Ah, ok, ok. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Gracias.
Que le vaya muy bien.
Igualmente, gracias.
Gracias.
Now, as you've heard me talk about, one can generally eat fairly cheap down here. However, there have been several instances when I've shown up and taken a glance at the prices and promptly walked out the door with my cheap-ass tail between my legs. This instance was no exception. 25 bucks for a rotisserie chicken? What the hell? When the waiter walked back to the kitchen, I made my escape. A few blocks away, I found a grocery store selling chickens for a fraction of that price and picked up one for later. Since I obviously had no intentions of sticking to my diet, I sought out a famous taco joint downtown.
Buenas tardes.
Tenemos taquitos de carne asada, de discada de carnitas, picadillo.
Picadillo.
Picadillo sí hay. Sí, picadillo.
Ok, los precios están acá.
Los precios son a 15 pesos el taquito.
At 15 pesos a pop, I ordered up several tacos with picadillo and chicharrón and salsa verde.
Buenas tardes. ¿Me puedes explicar de cuáles sabores tiene de pasteles?
Está este de arriba que es de fresa.
Ajá.
Este es de chocolate. Este tiene glorias, que es dulce de leche con nuez.
Glorias, ok.
Este es pay de queso con
Chocolate.
es como brownie.
Oh, brownie, ok.
Como, pues,
Bueno, quisiera probar la de cajeta y de gloria.
cajeta y gloria.
Perfecto, sí. Ya estoy engordando. Muchas gracias.
Dijo, ¿qué me dijo? Pero no supe quién.
Buenas tardes. Gracias. So this is my executive suite. Don't know if I've ever gotten an executive suite before, but I've got my own little kitchen table, a little love seat, comfortable bed. I got a microwave, a microonda, and a refrigerador, which is like the first time I've ever been in a hotel room in Mexico that has both of these things. You know, I probably have, actually. I take that back. But they're not very common. I just went and got breakfast and got some Loxel, which is an anti-parasitic. People who live in Mexico take this stuff once or twice a year. After I cross back, I'll take a tablet. Some people get sick off of it. I've never had a problem, but it just sort of cleans you out of any possible parasites that you might have picked up from fruits, vegetables, or any kind of undercooked meat or anything like that. So just generally sort of a good idea to have. This is a great little space to get some work done on the computer. Actually, I got my last video uploaded here last night. Show you the bathroom. Very cool. It's got a hot water thing, but there was no hot water, so you got to make do. So these are two different types of pasteles, rebanadas de pastel. They're both basically a cheesecake base. This is cajeta, which is sort of like the Mexican style caramel, and nuez, which is chopped up walnuts with the cherry on top. And then this is another type of cheesecake made with the type of candy they call a glorieta, which is also sort of a caramel type of deal. All right, well, it's finally time. I'm about 150 miles away from the border. It's always a little bit bittersweet. Hate to leave, but I'll be glad to be back in the U.S. That's it.
It sure was nice staying here in my executive suite for a few days. On my way out, I spoke with the clerk who I'd never seen. He was an older man with a surprisingly detailed knowledge of U.S. geography. I explained my route to him, and he informed me of a number of small towns I'd be passing through on my way back home. I took a deep breath and headed for the border.